Detective Laura Pierce was no stranger to the weight of the unknown. Years of working missing persons and cold cases had sharpened her instincts, but nothing could prepare her for the call that came through on a rain-soaked Tuesday night. Her precinct was nearly empty, just the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant clatter of radios. A thin beam of orange streetlights sliced through the rain-streaked window beside her desk. She sat slumped in her chair, eyes tired, hands stained with yesterday's coffee. The phone buzzed sharply, a sudden jolt in the quiet night. She answered quickly, voice steady but wary. "Detective Pierce." "Laura, this is Sheriff Daniels from Coldwater Hollow," the voice came, low and ragged. "I'm sorry to bother you this late, but we've got a situation that's unusual. I'm hoping you can help." Coldwater Hollow, the name alone conjured unease. A tiny town tucked deep in Mississippi's backwoods, steeped in legends older than any living memory. Places like that didn't call for help often, and when they did, it was usually something far from ordinary. "What kind of situation?" Laura asked, grabbing her coat, the old leather creaking as she pulled it on. "There's a boy. Tommy McAllister. He's been missing for 3 days. Last seen near Mill Road, the edge of the hollow forest. The locals say they've heard whispers, seen shadows that move without a source. Some even talk about the hollow's curse." Laura swallowed hard. She'd read the reports. Coldwater Hollow's history was littered with disappearances, strange occurrences dismissed as superstition. But something about this case felt different. "I'll be there as soon as I can." The drive north was long, the rain coming down in relentless sheets, blurring the road ahead. The forest loomed, dark and foreboding, the twisted limbs of ancient trees clawing at the sky. With every mile, the weight in Laura's chest grew heavier, a suffocating pressure she couldn't shake. Pulling into town, she felt the eyes of the place, unseen, watchful. The street lamps flickered as if reluctant to light the way. The sheriff's office was a worn building, its wooden sign faded by time. Sheriff Daniels met her at the door, his face drawn, eyes shadowed. "Thanks for coming, Laura. It's worse than we thought." He led her to the McAllister house, a weathered farmhouse on the outskirts, surrounded by wild undergrowth. Inside, the air was thick with despair. Mrs. McAllister sat on the floor, clutching a worn teddy bear, rocking back and forth. Mr. McAllister stared blankly at the wall, silence etched into every line of his face. Laura approached gently, introducing herself, offering what little comfort words could. "They say Tommy was last near the hollow," Daniels said quietly. "Folks around here believe the forest's alive, not in a good way. Shadows that watch, whispers that call you deeper in." Laura forced herself to focus. Logic, evidence, that was her world. But the fear in the room was palpable. Outside, the rain had eased to a mist. Laura stepped onto the porch and looked toward the dark edge of the forest. The trees stood like silent sentinels, their branches twisting like gnarled fingers. At the forest's mouth, she spotted faint marks in the mud, deep scratches, almost claw-like, but too large to belong to any known animal. A cold wind whispered through the leaves, carrying voices just beyond comprehension. Laura shivered, pushing the chill down. She was here to find a missing boy, but she could already feel the forest watching, waiting. This was no ordinary case. And Laura knew it would change everything she believed about fear. The next morning dawned gray and heavy, a dense fog hanging low over Coldwater Hollow like a shroud. Detective Laura Pierce arrived at the edge of the forest before sunrise, the air thick with dampness and an almost tangible sense of unease. Her boots sank slightly into the moss-covered ground as she stepped beyond the cracked tree line, the forest swallowing her whole. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional drip of water from the wet leaves. The deeper she moved, the more the world seemed to shift, the light dimming, the trees growing taller, their branches reaching out like skeletal arms. Laura's eyes scanned the ground. There were strange footprints, large, irregular, and dragging in places, unlike anything she'd seen before. Claw marks gouged at the bark of several trees, fresh and deep. A faint metallic scent hung in the air, subtle but unsettling. She crouched near a cluster of broken branches, noticing a small object partially buried in the dirt, a torn piece of fabric, dark and frayed. Her heart quickened. It looked like part of a child's jacket. Pulling out her phone, she took pictures, careful not to disturb anything more than necessary. Suddenly, a low whisper floated through the trees, too soft to understand but clear enough to send a shiver down her spine. Laura froze, listening. The sound seemed to ebb and flow with the wind, voices carried just beyond comprehension. "Hello," she called softly, voice steady but wary. Only silence answered. She pressed forward, following a narrow animal trail that twisted deeper into the hollow. The canopy thickened, blotting out what little sunlight remained. Shadows danced unnaturally along the trunks, shapes twisting with every step. Half an hour in, Laura's radio crackled faintly, breaking the stillness. "Pierce, you there?" "Sheriff Daniels. Weather's turning worse, might have to pull back soon." "I'm close to where Tommy was last seen," Laura replied. "Found some signs. Something's not right here." The forest seemed to listen, holding its breath. Laura reached a small clearing. The ground was disturbed, footprints circled erratically, as if whoever had been here had been running, then stopped suddenly. In the center lay a broken branch, snapped with force. She scanned the trees and noticed an old tree stump covered in strange carvings, symbols twisting into each other like some ancient script. Her pulse quickened. These markings looked deliberate, as if left by someone, or something, warning trespassers. As she studied the symbols, a sudden movement caught her eye. A figure, blurred and fleeting, slipped behind a massive oak. Laura turned sharply but saw nothing. A cold breath of air swept past her, carrying the scent of decay and earth. Her skin prickled. Pulling out her notebook, she jotted down the details: claw marks, footprints, strange carvings, whispered voices. Later, back at the sheriff's office, Laura spoke with locals who knew the Hollow's stories. Most avoided the topic, eyes downcast or filled with fear. An old man named Hank reluctantly shared what little he would. "They say the Hollow's cursed," Hank muttered, voice trembling. "That the forest's alive with spirits, angry, restless. People who go and don't always come out. And if they do, they're not the same." Laura pressed for more, but Hank only shook his head. "You best be careful, detective. That place doesn't take kindly to strangers." As night fell, Laura returned to the McAllister house. The family sat in tense silence, eyes haunted. Mrs. McAllister clutched a faded photograph of Tommy, lips moving in silent prayer. Laura felt a knot tighten in her stomach. The forest was hiding something dark and ancient. And the longer she stayed, the more the Hollow whispered its secrets. The house felt colder than before as Laura stepped inside. The heavy wooden door creaked behind her, sealing the silence in. The air was thick with a mix of old wood, damp earth, and something else, something faintly metallic and unfamiliar. Mrs. McAllister rose from her chair, eyes red-rimmed and swollen from sleepless nights. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "Tommy was a good boy, never caused trouble. Always curious about the forest, though. I warned him to stay away, but he was stubborn." Laura nodded gently. "When was the last time you saw him?" 3 days ago. He said he wanted to find the whispering tree he'd heard about from the other kids." "The whispering tree?" Laura repeated, pen poised. Mrs. McAllister's gaze dropped. "An old legend. They say if you listen close enough, the tree talks back. But no one really knows what it says." Laura exchanged a look with Sheriff Daniels, who'd accompanied her inside. He grimaced. Those stories have been around a long time. Some say the tree's cursed, that it traps the souls of those who listen. Laura spent the next hour interviewing the McAllister family, piecing together a fragile timeline. Mr. McAllister, usually stoic, revealed cracks in his calm facade. "There was something strange the night Tommy disappeared," he said quietly. "We heard noises, like whispers just outside the window. At first, I thought it was the wind, but it felt different. Like the house itself was breathing." Laura's eyes narrowed. "Did Tommy have any enemies? Anyone who might want to harm him?" Mr. McAllister shook his head. "No. Except, well, his older brother, Jake. They fought sometimes, but it was just sibling rivalry." Jake McAllister arrived late that evening, eyes wary and guarded. His expression darkened when Laura mentioned Tommy. "I didn't like how obsessed he was with that stupid forest," Jake snapped. "That place is cursed. Everyone knows it. I told him to leave it alone, but he wouldn't listen." Laura studied Jake carefully. There was more beneath the surface, a mix of guilt, fear, and something unspeakable. As night deepened, strange things began to happen. The lights flickered without cause. Cold drafts swept through the rooms, carrying faint whispers. Laura's own breath seemed to fog the air despite the warmth of the house. In the kitchen, a glass shattered suddenly, shards scattering like frozen rain. Everyone jumped, hearts pounding. Laura felt a presence, unseen but undeniable. Something watching, waiting. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to remain calm. That night, as she lay awake on the couch, she heard it again, the whispers, soft and urgent, drifting from the forest beyond the window. A voice, barely audible, calling her name. Laura closed her eyes, trying to shut out the creeping dread. But the hollow had already begun its grip on her mind. The morning fog still clung stubbornly to the edges of Coldwater Hollow when Laura met with Hank, the old man who reluctantly spoke of the forest's dark past. His weathered face was etched with lines deeper than time, eyes clouded with memories no one dared revisit. "Detective," Hank began, voice low and weary, "this place, it's been haunted long before any of us were born. The hollow holds secrets, dark as the night itself." Laura leaned in, notebook ready. "Tell me everything you know." Hank sighed, shuffling his worn coat. "Years ago, before the town was here, the land belonged to the Ashgrove family. They were said to have dabbled in things best left alone, old magic, rituals to control the forest and its spirits." He paused, his eyes flickering with unease. "One night, after a terrible storm, the entire family vanished. No trace. The only thing left behind was a strange symbol carved into the oldest tree in the forest, a twisting spiral that seems to move if you stare too long." Laura's pulse quickened. She'd seen similar markings near the clearing. "Some say the Ashgroves cursed the land before they disappeared," Hank continued. "A curse that traps souls and drives men mad. That's why people fear the hollow. It's not just the woods, it's what's inside them." Laura considered the implications. If the curse was real, if the forest was alive in some malevolent way, Tommy's disappearance might be part of something far older and darker than a simple missing child case. That afternoon, Laura and Sheriff Daniels ventured deeper into the forest, intent on finding the tree with the spiral carving. The air grew thick, heavy with the scent of moss and decay. The forest seemed to close in, shadows shifting unnaturally. When they found the tree, Laura's breath caught. The spiral was carved deep into the bark, pulsing faintly as if alive. The wood beneath seemed almost blackened, as if burnt by an unseen fire. As Laura traced the symbol with her fingers, a sudden chill swept over her. The whispers returned, louder now, voices layered and urgent, echoing in the clearing. She stumbled back, heart pounding. "We need to find out what this means," Laura said grimly, "before more people disappear." Back in town, Laura researched the Ashgrove family, digging through dusty archives and faded newspapers. She uncovered rumors of strange rituals, disappearances, and madness linked to the family name. But one name stood out: Evelyn Ashgrove, the last known member, rumored to have fled into the Hollow, never to be seen again. As night fell, Laura's thoughts raced. The forest was more than a place; it was a prison, a trap, a living nightmare. And somewhere inside, Tommy McAllister was still out there, caught in the curse's cruel grip. That night, the forest called to Laura more strongly than ever. She could hear it in her dreams, a low, haunting melody, weaving through the shadows, drawing her deeper into the Hollow's grasp. Determined to end the nightmare, Laura gathered a small team: Sheriff Daniels, a local historian, and a few trusted deputies, to follow the trail into the heart of the forest at first light. As dawn broke, the group moved cautiously beneath the dense canopy. The trees seemed to close in tighter with every step, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and something far older, decay and sorrow. Hours passed, the only sounds their muffled footsteps and the occasional distant whisper, impossible to locate. Then, suddenly, they reached a clearing unlike any other, a circle of ancient stones, worn by time and covered in strange symbols. At its center, a gnarled tree rose, blackened and twisted, the spiral carving blazing faintly as if alive. Laura stepped forward, heart pounding, when a chilling wind swept through the clearing. The whispers grew louder, voices overlapping in a terrifying crescendo. From the shadows emerged a figure, pale, ethereal, eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "Evelyn Ashgrove. Why have you come?" her voice echoed, simultaneously beautiful and terrible. Laura swallowed her fear. "We want to end this, the curse, the disappearances. Let the Hollow be free." Evelyn's gaze softened briefly, then hardened. "The curse is the Hollow's heart. It cannot be undone without sacrifice." A cold dread settled over Laura as the ground beneath them trembled. The spirits trapped in the forest began to stir, wailing in anguish. Laura realized what she must do. Drawing from ancient texts uncovered earlier, she recited the words of a binding ritual, offering herself as a vessel to contain the curse's darkness. Light exploded from the tree, enveloping Laura in a blinding glow. The forest fell silent, the oppressive weight lifting as the spirits found peace. When the light faded, Laura was alone in the clearing, breathless but alive. Tommy McAllister emerged from the shadows, weak but unharmed. The curse was broken. Back in town, the Hollow seemed lighter, less menacing. The McAllister family was reunited, their ordeal finally over. But Laura knew the forest's darkness still lingered, a warning, a reminder of the thin line between our world and the shadows beyond. She had faced the heart of darkness and survived. But some whispers never truly die.